Welcome to our presentation on Bordetella pertussis. This presentation was researched, compiled, and presented by Cami Eastmond, Megan Cavanaugh, and me, myself, Emily Brown. We hope that as we go through these different slides and as we talk about pertussis, that we'll be able to educate you on a very common disease, especially around this winter time and as school starts up again. Let's start out.
Okay, so let's meet Bordetella pertussis. So Bordetella is its genus, and pertussis is the species. So together it's Bordetella pertussis. And so what this is commonly known as is whooping cough, as we see from the picture of the cute little baby. And on the other side is a close-up of what Bordetella pertussis looks like. So that's what it looks like right there. And we're going to continue on with some background information about Bordetella pertussis. So since it's known as whooping cough, if you ever had it or if you ever know what that is, it's a really nasty respiratory disease that's very highly contagious. And it has an incubation period of 7 to 10 days from when you are exposed to when you start showing symptoms. So you could honestly get this at any time and not realize it until 7 to 10 days afterwards. So some more information about Bordetella pertussis is its gram stain is a gram negative, so that's red. And this is an actual picture of a gram stain of Bordetella pertussis down here. So we can see for the morphology that it's a coccobacillus, which means it's in little rods, and there's some that are little tiny circles as well. And here it is in single and small groups. So from this gram stain we can see there are clusters in the middle, and then there's some tinier groups out in the white spaces. So some more information about pertussis is it's non-motile, so it does not move. So to get around, it hangs out on the, it attaches to the respiratory tract via the cilia. So the cilia are those little tiny hair-like projections, if you remember. And so this bacteria will hang out in those in your respiratory tract and just wait for an opportunity to kind of cause harm to its host. So what Bordetella pertussis has is it's aerobic. So once it gets off the cilia, it does travel through the air. And it does not make endospores. So it cannot last in very harsh environments, which is why it lives in this, like the cilia. So it's in a very protected environment. And it also has the lipopolysaccharide layer. And if you remember about the gram staining, what that means is gram staining negative has those double layers. So it has the outer membrane, then it has that peptidoglycan layer in the middle, and then it has the inner membrane. So the LPS layer is added protection on that outer membrane. So what that does for this bacteria is if it's being attacked for anything, it has that extra protection from dying. So it kind of helps it out a little bit. So if we keep going on, the reservoir, so we're thinking of, where do we even get this bacteria from? Well, lucky for us, it comes from human beings. We are the natural sources of Bordetella pertussis. Now, when it's in our own body, it does not cause us any harm. And like I said earlier, it's very opportunistic. So once it leaves our own body and gets onto somebody else, that's when it starts to cause some issues. So it's natural to our throat, our mouth, our nose, and these are all the respiratory tract. As we see in this picture, we have the throat. And here we can see a close-up of what this bacteria looks like as it lives in that area. And so what happens is once it leaves our body and gets into somebody else's, it releases a toxin, and it's a pertussis toxin known as filamentous hemagglutinin. And what that does is it binds to its new host trachea cells, which is where that nasty cough comes from, is that it's literally living in their throat and growing and colonizing and causing problems. So that's why it's very, very important to not touch your nose, your eyes, your face. Don't touch anything, and make sure you wash your hands a lot in the wintertime.
All right, so some signs and symptoms of this is a runny nose, nasal congestion, red watery eyes, a low-grade fever, a mild occasional cough that will have kind of a whoop being sound at the end, so that usually comes a bit later. Sleep or apnea, which is a pause in breathing, usually common in infants. This is a really dangerous thing for infants to catch because they are just so small and their immune system isn't quite developed yet. But it also causes fatigue, and then also, once again, in infants, it can cause death if not treated properly and swiftly enough. Okay. And because this does produce such violent coughing at times, there are some long-term side effects even after you are healed and you are feeling better. These can come just basically because of the violent coughing, and that would be bruised and cracked ribs, abdominal hernias, broken blood vessels in the whites of the eye, and even broken blood vessels in the skin. So that's these. If you want to avoid these, it's best to get treated as soon as possible so you don't have any of these long-term side effects. Okay, so how is this transmitted? How do you catch this? If it comes from us, how do you catch it? Bordetella pertussis is extremely contagious. It is transmitted from person to person, usually from coughing or sneezing. So it's important to cough into your sleeve and to sneeze into a tissue to stay away from other people if they are showing these signs, or if you are showing any signs, especially little children, once again. Because it is transmitted via coughing and sneezing, it is an airborne pathogen, and a person is most contagious within the first 2 weeks of infections. Once again, it is very important to get treated swiftly, to follow the signs, even if you have a hint that you might have this, to go see a doctor to check.
So some statistics about our friend Bordetella pertussis. There was an outbreak in Utah County as of September. The cases had doubled from 2017, and experts expect the cases to continue to rise now that schools started and germs are being spread more rapidly. I believe there were 70 cases in September, and there were about 30 last September. So before the vaccine, there are about 200,000 cases reported annually in the US. Since the vaccine, there's been an 80% decrease with wide use. There are still hot pockets of where outbreaks occur when vaccine rates are low. As of 2016, there were 98 cases per 100,000. Unfortunately, more than half were infants, and some of those infants passed away. In the US, their cases are on the rise since the 1980s, and the anti-vaccine movement started gaining speed. Worldwide, there are still about 24.1 million cases, approximately 160,000 deaths per year. That's usually in places that are underdeveloped, like third world countries where they don't have clean water and they don't practice proper hygiene and they don't have access to vaccines. So prevention, there's the acellular vaccine, which is being used today. It contains some cellular material such as protein to enact immune response. There's the DTaP for those who are 7 years and younger, and the Tdap for older children and adults. The Tdap is a reduced dose of the diphtheria and pertussis vaccine, and it is just a booster, so they don't need as much. The whole cellular vaccine was used before the 1990s. And a whole cellular vaccine has complete cells, but they've been inactivated. In the 1990s, there were some unsubstantiated claims that there were side effects such as brain death after receiving the vaccine, so that's no longer in use. Who should get the vaccine? Pregnant women should get it during weeks 27 to 36, and they get the DTaP, and they should get it every pregnancy, regardless of their last dose, because it doesn't hurt the mom, and it gives antibodies to the baby who can't get vaccinated until 2 months. And the baby gets vaccinated again at 4 months, 6 months, 15 to 18 months, and 4 to 6 years. And those vaccines are the Tdap. And then a booster every 5 to 10 years, the DTaP, for older children and adults. So treatment, like Emily mentioned, it's best to get treatment started as early as possible. It's best during the first 1 to 2 weeks before the coughing paroxysms occur. After that, the antibiotics used to treat it aren't as effective. The antibiotics can include zithromycin, clarithromycin, and erythromycin. The treatment, or the disease itself, usually takes about 12 weeks to run its course with proper treatment and no complications. But if complications arise, of course, the disease will take longer, and complications can include seizures and pneumonia. Some additional information. There's been recent evidence to suggest that the bacterium is evolving to overcome the immune protection granted by the acellular vaccine. In 2012, there was an outbreak in England, and some university scientists did research and found that surface proteins in the vaccine were evolving more rapidly than the surface proteins that were not included in the vaccine, which means in the next few years, the vaccine won't be as effective as it is now and may become completely ineffective a few years following.
All right, and as Megan mentioned, bacteria, microbes, they're always adapting and changing slightly. So ongoing research is continually important and very important. There is a research done that was published in a peer-reviewed article, Identification and Characterization of a Bright Yellow Pigment, Bordetella pertussis, published by Wiley Blackwell, and this was published within the last few years, so it's fairly recent. So they studied the bright yellow supernatants of Bordetella pertussis to see kind of what it was made out of. They used UV visible analysis and mass spectrometry, and they were able to clearly identify this as riboflavin. Why is this important? Because riboflavin has been shown to produce growth or enhance growth in Bordetella pertussis in some environments. So this research can really help us understand how it is germinating, how it is spreading, how it is growing, and what we can do to prevent ourselves from that and to also heal ourselves even after we are infected with it as well. They did further research on other species of Bordetella, and they found riboflavin and the supernatant in almost all of them. I believe all of them that they have studied so far. And so not only will this research benefit whooping cough and what we are learning about right now, but also benefit other diseases caused by other species of Bordetella as well. So it's really important and pretty amazing that they were able to just look using UV visible ray and mass spectrometry to clearly identify it as riboflavin. The reason why it is bright yellow is currently unknown, and the scientists didn't seem too interested in the reason for its color, or more of just what it's made up of and what does that mean. We want to thank you for attending our slide and our video. We hope that this was very educational and very helpful and beneficial to each of you. We mentioned quite a few different statistics and ongoing researches. For the references of that, if you wish to research it more or to check out its validity, we have a reference page right here where we have the titles of each analysis, research, data that we use, along with the website on which you can find it on, and the authors' names and the dates they were published. We want to thank you very much, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.